Hello there and a very warm welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I am Victor Matthias. Now, the 2019 general elections have come and gone, but in its trail, it has left people seeking for solutions to some of the problems that were faced during the process, and that will be our focus on the program today. We will also be bringing you the 2019 Yali Tech Camp Reconnect workshop that held in Lagos. But before we get to that, let's take a look at what made the social media trends in the past week.
Nigerians wasted no time as they joined the rest of the world to celebrate Mother's Day. The day set aside for the main purpose of celebrating and honoring the mother of the family, as well as motherhood, maternal bonds, and the influence of mothers in society. The International Day of Happiness is celebrated worldwide every March 20th to inspire, mobilize, and advance the global happiness movement. Nigerians were not left out as they joined the rest of the world to share reasons for which they are happy for.
Well, there you go, the trends in the past week. Of course, again, happy Mother's Day. But joining us to look at the topic of the day, we have Najib Bello. He's a public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us on the
Thanks
program.
for having me, Victor.
And also, Ugochukwu Ikeako is a political analyst. Thanks as well for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So one of the trends, also was the international celebration of International Happiness Day. I mean, should we be celebrating? I mean, what should we be happy for in Nigeria? I mean, the elections? Should we be happy for the elections? Let me just put it that way.
I'm not particularly happy about the elections, but of course there are people who are happy. But generally, Nigerians are just happy to be alive. That's the only thing
That's
I
the
can
catch.
say we are
And that's
happy about.
that's why the hashtag trended, I
Exactly,
guess.
yeah.
Well, I think if you survived Boko Haram in the northeast, you survived hunger. You survived hunger across the Middle Belt and the rest of them. It might seem like we don't have a lot to be thankful as a nation, but as a people, if you're making progress in your life, no matter how little, you should be happy and you should be thankful. And most importantly, the whole thing collided with the International Women's Day. We have our mothers in our life, and most importantly, they're like the most important persons in our lives. So we should celebrate them and we should be happy for that.
That's right. That's right. Well, just before we continue again, we have Alisa joining us from Kano, Nigeria's northwest region. Ali, it's a pleasure to have you as well on the program. Oh, fantastic. How's Kano? I mean, we understand it's pretty much on the very hot side. How are you coping?
Yeah, Kano is much more like very hot. Like yesterday we recorded around 42, while today we're recording around 40 degrees Celsius.
Oh my, that's quite high. But see what the weather is kind of different here in Lagos. People are complaining, but it's 40 in Kano.
Yes.
But now let's get this conversation started. The elections. I mean, the process has been what people have been looking at and talking about again after all the conclusions or the inconclusiveness and as well as the conclusions now. But what do you make of the process so far?
It's been shambles. I didn't expect what I saw with these elections from what INEC had told us about their preparations and that they had gotten everything they need. It just, starting from when they postponed the elections, I already saw problems. But I felt that when the new date came, everything would be all right. INEC was not ready. But then, aside from INEC, I think a more serious thing we should look at was the security situation during the elections. There are very serious security challenges that came up. The military thugs ransacking polling centers. I think we need to do more about the security situation. The police needs to do more with our elections, and we need to properly separate what should be INEC's fault. If thugs get into a collation center and are threatening collation officers or are seizing documents, it's a police failure. And so far, I've not even seen the police trying to bring
So it's not
men
entirely
in.
it's not entirely INEC's fault.
A lot of what we experience is less of INEC's fault and more of the police's fault. And so far, we've not seen the police saying, okay, all the centers where there were such security breaches, we've not seen them calling their men or giving us reports of, okay, this is what we are doing, we're investigating. We're not hearing that.
Well, I mean, definitely there were the positives. What were some of those for you?
Well, I think it's hard to see positives within the process we've seen over the last few weeks because, like Najib rightly said, prior to the election proper, we had incidents where, I think in Plateau State, in Abia State, and in Anambra State, where INEC offices caught up fire, and some of the sensitive materials were destroyed in the process. Up to this very moment, we don't know. Nobody has been arrested. And the election came in and some of the challenges. And Najib said we shouldn't blame INEC for some of the security challenges. I disagree, because at the end of the day, the core of electioneering, everything in terms of logistics, in terms of security, is INEC's duty. They got everybody to be involved. They got the Air Force, they got the NEMA, whoever.
Which is a plus.
Which is a plus to them. And also, if we've had issues because of security issues in this election, they're supposed to be working together. And at this point, INEC should be driving that conversation with the police officers, the police department, the police team, to make who failed in their duty, who failed at this place. So that if we can do that, the problem with us in this country that we don't learn from our crisis, because if you can figure out the people that failed in doing what they need to do so far, then we can see, okay, how we manage it. Because the truth is this, before the election, there was this high sense of participation from the people. And you could see that after the presidential, the number dropped down because the people were not happy with the process. And it's not a good one for us as a nation.
Well, hopefully we'll get it right next time. But of course, let's get to hear from Ali Isa in Kano. Ali, Kano was actually one of the flashpoints, as they would say. But the process generally is what we're looking at. What would you say was done right and should be maintained, moving forward?
Is the problem of this issue of vote buying. Like, there was so much, like, all the parties are guilty of vote buying. They set aside so much amount of money, funds were allocated, especially during this the supplementary election. A polling unit that I normally used to, my polling unit that I used to vote from, they normally they set aside as much as 3 million naira, 3 million naira, just a polling unit. Like a day to the election, they went around houses and they were given women, like a woman, anybody can give his own voter's card. Then that voter's card is going to be given 10,000 naira. When he is given that 10,000 naira, then the people will now collect the voter's card. When they collect the voter's card, then next day during the election, they will now come and and give it to another person that is going to vote.
Yeah, did you document all of this? Because I'm beginning to think how this is going to work. Because if someone else uses someone else's voter's card, how does the machine, validate that vote?
Okay, we have this issue with there's this lab from INEC that is the process, because if you look at what INEC said was anybody that comes, if the card reader is able to identify or is able to read that PVC, then even if that person's thumbprint cannot be detected, then that person can vote. That is exactly what happened. If now if I take another person's voter's card now, and I'll go to a polling unit and I want to vote, the moment the card reader in that polling unit reads that PVC, that means I'll be able to vote.
Okay, I'll come back to you in just a bit. Now, I mean, he's talking about how the PVC issues and everything. So now, and Nigerians have been calling for the introduction of technology into our electoral system. I mean, if this happened, how do we take care? How do we take care of it in future elections?
First of all, we have to properly identify Nigerians. He talked about age. You see, we saw some records of children, people who looked like children, going to vote. Now, where INEC has failed in that respect is when you're issuing the voters' cards, how they cross-check people's identity. If you come to them and you give them your fingerprint and you give them any information, they record it down and they give you a PVC. But how do they verify that this person, you are actually so and so? People could have moved, like they said, people could have moved from Niger to maybe Kano or somewhere and registered. Children could have been brought up from school or primary school. If you cannot cross-check from maybe a bank record, a school record, a working place record, or even a government, maybe the census board or something, you cannot verify someone's identity. How do you know that the information they are giving you is factual? How do you know they are above?
So you're not talking about having a data bank, a general data bank.
We have various databases with different institutions. How do we use driver's licenses, international passports? How do we use that information to say, okay, this person is who he says he is and is resident here or is above 18 years old? We don't use that information. And going forward is one of the things I feel INEC should do in terms of knowing who is who. Then in terms of vote buying, I wouldn't say much about INEC again, because security is for the police. And whether it's election time or not election time is something the police should take care of. Why is someone taking 3 million naira to a voting booth? Initially, some years back, about 2012, 2013, we talked about a cashless society. And these were some of the problems we thought would be solved if Nigeria was cashless.
Which is also a technological
exactly.
Solution.
But then you have someone taking a sack of 3 million naira cash and distributing it house to house, and nothing is happening.
Hopefully, again, you know,
like I said, INEC has their own faults. Security agents have a lot to do too.
Yeah, I think Nigerians also have their own.
We have our own.
But I mean, talking about the technology, I mean, moving forward, what would you want to see?
For me, all right, to limit some of the challenges that we're experiencing during this election, hopefully now that Mr. President has gotten his second mandate, that will ensure, hopefully, if the court did not remove him, that his tenure extends to 2023. He has the next 4 years to make sure that our electoral process gets better. To sign into the Electoral Act, there was a little bit of tussle between them and this current 8th National Assembly. If he can do that, if he can deliver on that, maybe he will be able to solidify his legacy as someone that helped improve our democratic process. Because if that happens, what will happen is that the result from the polling unit will be transmitted straight. So
that removes the whole the long wait.
That removes the long wait, and that removes the incidents of tampering, like we saw in Imo State, where someone had to falsify, and the police officer was at that part of collection center. He was arrested by the police officer. So these are some of the things that we can do as a nation moving forward. But my fear is that we're in a country where we don't learn from our crises, and we keep making the same mistake. Like you said something about money. We saw a video of 2 billion vans going into somebody's compound at an event of an election, and we are told that it's somebody's money. So if that happens, it's difficult not to ask politicians of different parties not to bring in money to the polling unit, because people think it's all about winning. No, election is all about winning. It's about making our democracy, making our institution, making ourselves as a country better.
Oh, well, anyways, I mean, I'm just trying to think over the way you're saying that democracy is not about, or elections is not about winning.
It's not necessarily about winning.
It's not necessarily about winning, because it's all about winning.
Like he said, that's why I want to add this point. We know that the Senate president lost out of the elections. Yeah. Well, he has been very graceful about it. It's not been a situation where he says, oh, I've lost, I'm not going to work. So one of the things I would even love him to do is ensure that the Electoral Act, whatever amendments that the president wanted, between now and when he's leaving he should try and amend whatever was the problem and let them get this thing through. So he shows it's not about him winning an election, it's about the future of Nigeria.
Well, all right, very well. Ali Issa, election observer from Connected Development, thanks as well. Thank you for joining us on the program. I have to say thank you. Of course, I have to say thank you to you guys too for being part of the program. Najib Bello, public affairs analyst, as well as Uchukwe Kerko, political analyst. But that's where we are talking about technology. When we return, the U.S. government has been supporting tech enthusiasts under the Young African Leaders Initiative, and they had a Reconnect party or a Reconnect session right here in Lagos, Nigeria, and we'll be bringing you highlights from that event. Please stay with us.